Hi there, this is John here, and today I'm going to be talking about that difficult subject of binge drinking. Now, it's a difficult subject because I have heard all sorts of things said to me. I'm a therapist, and people have said, well, I don't really have an alcohol problem because sometimes I can go for 2 or 3 weeks without having a single drop of alcohol, but then I binge drink, and once I start I can't stop. So the first issue concerning binge drinking is that, if you start to drink and then you can't stop, you are actually addicted to that alcohol. It's simply that you're not addicted all the time, or at least you can go for quite some time, maybe ignoring it, resisting it, and then something comes in to trigger that appetite, and you have one, and then you have 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Now, other people sort of binge drink every week. They might go for most of the time during the week without it because they're extremely busy. Perhaps they're doing their job, but Friday night they go out with their friends, they start to drink, and then that drinking turns into Saturday, and then Sunday maybe they start to recover in time for Monday again. So binge drinking really is about, if you're taking 3 or 4 pints a night, say of beer, then you're binge drinking. If you're having quite a lot of alcohol and you can feel it in your body that it's being affected, then you're binge drinking. So the question that's asked me as a therapist is, well, what do I do about it? Now, the first question about the binge drinking is to really, or the first issue is firstly to maybe keep a diary and find out exactly how much you're drinking. Now, sometimes just keeping a diary and then looking at it, just people are shocked at actually how much they drink, and that shock is sometimes in itself enough for somebody to go, whoa, right, I'm definitely going to cut down. But supposing that doesn't really work, the next question then is, what exactly do I do about it? Well, there's 2 approaches, and they're not necessarily exclusive, or at least one can lead on to the other. One is harm minimisation as an interim measure, and the second is sort of abstinence. Harm minimisation, for example, it's very helpful if you do have a diary, because that can then tell you about your pattern of binge drinking. So if you know, for example, that you always go out with your mates on a Friday night and the binge drinking starts there, then if you're not prepared to give up at that point, what you could do, for example, is have a few pints of water before you go out. You could actually start off on soft drinks and then move to low alcohol. And the idea of harm minimisation is that you try and reduce the amount of alcohol you have, and you reduce the risks. If, for example, you drive to the place where you do the binge drinking, and then you're tempted to drive back, that puts you at risk, it puts your license at risk. Harm minimisation will be, for example, using public transport. If there's a point, for example, again, maybe you get into fights, maybe you have unprotected sex. If you're female, then unprotected sex, of course, can also carry the additional issue of pregnancy. So part of it is to keep a diary, to find out what your binge drinking habits are. Secondly, look at what you do, what the risk is, and how you might minimise that risk. And that's really important. And if you go by car, use public transport. If you have very strong beers, have lower alcohol beers. Start off with drinking water to fill the stomach. Maybe have a good meal to absorb it. Harm minimisation can be an initial sort of first step into beating the binge drinking habit. Now, for some people, harm minimisation, it doesn't go far enough, and some of the consequences, for example, of binge drinking mean that you're spending a lot of money, and that money could be spent on more profitable things. That's another reason for wanting abstinence. Now, I'm also going to talk about something that is relatively new in the sort of addiction fields, and that is the use of mindfulness as part of an alcohol reduction strategy. Now, how might this work? Well, I'm going to have a couple of toys to illustrate the points. Okay. Now, if you imagine for a moment that this represents you, and whoops, and this little fellow here represents you and your binge drinking. And maybe this soldier here, these toys have both helped me in another video, and they're doing this. This is the binge drinking issue. So how can mindfulness actually help to prevent you from going on that binge drink? Well, the first principle of mindfulness is body awareness. And supposing, for example, you've discovered through your keeping your diary that Friday night is going to be a really difficult time for you, and that's the time you're going to go on the binge drinking. And let's assume, for example, from your diary that you've also discovered that as Friday gets on, you get more and more agitated, and the cravings for the drink get stronger and stronger. So it's like, it's Friday night, you've got to go out on the booze, says the soldier. Yeah, you need it. How then can mindfulness techniques actually help? Well, the first thing to say about these mindfulness techniques is that you have to make a conscious decision to use them. Yeah. Part of the feedback about the use of mindfulness in addictions work was a wonderful comment that I was told this: John, your techniques work a treat when I decide to use them. So the first step is actually a cognitive one, and it's making a decision to use the technique. So how might you do it? Well, I'm just going to give you a demonstration using these two. Okay. So imagine this is you, and you're noticing the cravings. Now, what you'd normally do, or what people normally do, is sometimes they turn their back on the cravings, they try and distract themselves, and eventually the cravings get stronger and stronger, and whoa! The cravings are overwhelming, and you're in the binge drinking. And once you started it, it's going to be really difficult to stop. The other thing we do sometimes try and argue, no, I don't want to binge drink today. And this one says, go on, let your hair down. You know you feel good when you do it. You can have one, but you don't have to have the others. And this one goes, no, I really don't want it. It's spending me money. It's spending money. I can't afford it. It's doing my liver in. It's doing damage. And you have an argument with it. Now, sometimes the argument will work, and sometimes it won't. So what's this mindfulness alternative? Well, this one here, which is you, and potentially me, although I'm luckily not subject to the binge drinking cravings myself. I've got other faults. But this one here, the first thing is when the agitation starts to come, is to do a very simple grounding exercise. So the grounding exercise is for this one here to maybe just notice the floor beneath his feet, the floor beneath your feet. And maybe if you want to do that exercise with me now, I'm actually going to demonstrate it. So right now I am really putting all my attention and my awareness into the floor beneath my feet, and I'm getting a sense of the warmth of my feet and how the floor is supporting me. Now, quite often people tell me that this craving here is often going on in the head. It's like going round and round and round. So the idea is that from the grounded position of noticing the floor, you say a sort of inner hello to the cravings. And you may even want to try and externalize this craving here by imagining, just inviting a picture, what would the craving look like if I could see it? And if I could picture it sitting opposite me, what would it be? Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, of course, this here is the craving. You're saying, hello, I'm the craving. You really ought to go binge drinking tonight. You really enjoy it. I'm feeling so stressed. And from the grounded position, you don't have to dialogue with the craving, but you just notice it and acknowledge it. Okay, there's a part of me, this bit up here, that really wants that binge drink. I'm going to notice it, say hello to it. I'm going to stay in my grounded position, noticing the floor, noticing maybe the seat that's supporting me. I'm externalizing it so that I'm picturing it sitting just in front of me, or sitting in the chair opposite, and I'm going to keep some space between me and the craving. Now, what happens is that this craving will probably last no more than 5 minutes, although that 5 minutes can seem a lot longer. It's almost as if time slows down when you're suffering the craving. But you're not pushing the craving down, you're not suppressing it, you're not arguing with it. You shouldn't, I don't want to do this. You're not giving into it. Oh yeah, come on, let's get together and have a booze up. Hey. But you're keeping it at a distance, and you're simply allowing it to be. Now, somebody might ask me, well, how on earth does that help? The experience of people who try mindfulness with the addictions is that as they keep it company, they keep that distance. This craving initially will go absolutely crazy, and you're noticing all of the energy involved. And if you can stay grounded, it then begins to fade. Now, there are good reasons why this happens. One of the reasons why it happens is that the craving, it's the energy in the craving is a sort of, it's quite a complex theory, but the energy in the craving is a sort of blocked energy and it's a divert from maybe one or more parts of our life history where something has happened, and somehow the process isn't completed. It's often linked. It can be linked sometimes linked to sort of trauma. It doesn't have to be. And what we're doing is, when we're using the mindfulness technique, rather than the suppression, which uses the frontal lobal system to suppress or override it, when we're being in relationship with it, we're actually beginning to discharge the energy that underlies the craving for binge drinking. So the energy rises and then falls. And the more that you use the technique, this is the feedback I've had from my clients, the craving itself begins to reduce. So this is, if you like, a relapse as part of a relapse prevention strategy. It can work extremely well. Now, it's also strongly advisable, if you're using this strategy, to have other help, and that can be from individual counselling, and it can also be from group therapy as well. Now, just a caveat, this video is not a substitute for getting expert help on binge drinking. And you can certainly get counselling from the National Health Service, in theory at least, and there are also in the United Kingdom lots of groups that will provide different types of counselling. Now, one brief thing before I end the video, and that is that this mindfulness technique, as I say, is a strategy for not drinking. It's a strategy for trying to work through the energy and the impulse to actually binge drink. My own view is that this is not in itself good enough. You do need to work through the underlying issues, because even with binge drinking, where you can go maybe sometimes for a few weeks without having a single drink, there is normally an underlying issue that is pushing it, and most of the time there is also the sheer force of the habit of it as well. Now, the mindfulness begins to discharge the energy, it begins to help you break the habit, but I do think you need some extra help on it. Anyway, I hope this has been a really helpful video, and don't be afraid to comment. Thanks, bye.